are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show.
Welcome to the Evolve to Win show with Paul and Heather Christie. I'm Heather.
And I'm Paul.
And we have with us today Michael Benson, the founder and CEO of Benson Blackburn. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for coming here and spending time with us. We really appreciate it. We know you're busy and you do some really cool things here in Naples. So we wanted to bring you on as a guest and find out a little bit more about some of the cool things that you're doing.
Great.
Yes, so excited to have Michael. So I want to give just a little bit of an introduction, and I want people to know a little bit about who Michael Benson is. I think we met originally just less than a year ago, and Michael has an extraordinary firm that really is a wealth preservation consultancy. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
It is such a cool field to be in. So Michael's firm works with the highly affluent families, entrepreneurs, family offices, in really helping them at every level preserve wealth. And so that in and of itself is exciting, and we want to hear a little bit about it. But one of the other things that I think really makes you unique and stand out is what you do to give back to the community in terms of the Next Gen Speaker Series that you founded. So we're going to get into detail about that, but he's brought some of the best thought leaders, CEOs, to this speaker series to really help with mentorship and leadership and philanthropy at the same time. So great to have you here.
Good.
Would you just start off by giving us a little bit of background on how you got into this industry? You've been in for 41 years now.
41 years,
Yeah.
yes.
How did you find it, or did it find you?
It doesn't seem that long, right?
Yeah. Well, it kind of found me. I was a student down at Miami University of Oxford, Ohio, and I decided that after 2 years I took a leave of absence. And during high school I was working on a golf course on the maintenance crew. I used to cut the golf greens and rake the sand traps. And my uncle, who happened to be in the insurance business, he said instead of putting on a hard hat and boots and going out and cutting the greens and working on the ground maintenance, why don't you put on a tie and go into the insurance business? So I tried that, and in the first 6 months I was making more money than graduating seniors from Miami. So
Wow.
I said, what's the use of going back to school? But I felt that I did need to get my education, so I actually went to the American College of Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and received my CLU CHFC, so I was designated as a doctorate in insurance. And so,
And for those who
didn't
don't
know that, right?
Yeah, for those who don't know those acronyms,
Right.
what do those two acronyms mean?
yeah, so CLU is a chartered life underwriter, and the CHFC is a chartered financial consultant. And there's 13 national exams that you have to pass. It usually takes 2 to 5 years to complete the exams, and then you get accredited through the American College of Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania.
So you did that still at a very young age. Got both of those designations.
I got both those designations by the time I was 26 years old, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think it's less than 1% ever get that designation in our industry. So it's a very small percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So now I've heard it said before from some of our other clients too who are in the insurance industry is that nobody typically goes to school to get into insurance. Like, they find this insurance industry and they fall in love with it and they stay with it for a
Right.
lifetime. So is that your experience
That's
too?
exactly what happened,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Exactly what happened. Yeah, I had after 2 years of doing well, because I love sales, I was always in sales, Fuller Brush and the newspapers. Sales was my thing. It's helping influence people to lead them to the decision that they wanted to make. And so after 2 years in the business, I had a really good friend and client that ended up passing away at age 36. And I remember standing at the kitchen sink with this widow who had a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old sitting in the next room. And there I'm standing with this $600,000 check with tears coming down her eyes. And because of my work, that lady and her family were able to stay in the same house, and I watched those kids go to college, and so that became my calling. That was my purpose in life, that I need to help people make sure that their affairs are in order.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, after 41 years in this industry and reaching the heights of success, I mean, you got to know with the clients that Benson Blackburn deals with this, that Michael truly is one of the best and most sought after in the industry. And I want to know how you really got there, because you know, the insurance field is filled with different professionals, but you've carved out this niche for yourself that I think is really extraordinary. So can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up working with the types of clients who you work with?
So yeah, that was really interesting. I started out working with college seniors, engineers at Case Western Reserve, and then I moved up market to doctors, residents and interns at the Cleveland Clinic, which is where I originally came from, Cleveland, Ohio. And then about 15 years into the business, I decided to start another company called Plain Giving Systems, because I needed another purpose for what I was doing. There had to be a larger calling or legacy for the work that I was doing. So Plain Giving Systems was a consulting company to help nonprofit organizations create endowments or plain giving programs. And we happened to hit the market at the right time, because in 1985 is when I started researching and actually founded the company in '87 after 2 years of research. And what we did is we built plain giving programs for nonprofit organizations, build endowments. And what they would do is put me in front of their board of trustees to show them how to leave part of their estates to the charitable organization. So instead of funding the IRS in the way of estate taxes, we could re-leverage those dollars back into a charitable foundation, which was really part of the 1969 tax law, which basically says that you can leave everything you own to charity and pay no estate taxes. So that's the 100% estate tax deduction. The question becomes is, if you leave everything you own to charity and pay no estate taxes to the government, how do you replenish that asset or the estate for your children? And you can do that through life insurance, through gifting, through family partnerships, sale to defective trust, grants, other types of very technical things in our industry. So I created a process called philanthropic estate planning, and that led to over 50 very large charitable organizations in the country that became clients. So what happened out of that is I was in front of very affluent people that sat on the boards of these nonprofit organizations. They had more sophisticated problems. They were surrounded by the best legal teams, the best accounting firms. And so over that 15-year period that I worked with a lot of these very affluent families, and these were CEOs of companies or very highly skilled, successful entrepreneurs, I learned a lot by sitting in the rooms and listening to their attorneys, their accountants, and there were always problems, whether it be an income tax problem, an estate problem, an insurance problem. So very successful building that out. We raised over $1 billion for nonprofit organizations for our clients in 15 years.
Congratulations on that.
And that process caused me, because it kept growing and growing, I was on airplanes 17 days a month. So I only slept in my bed 13 to 14 nights. And so that became very taxing on my family. And in order to get off of airplanes, I needed to move someplace where the wealth was. And that's how I ended up in Naples, Florida 10 years ago. Shirley and I and family moved down here, and I was able to get off airplanes because they all come here. The snowbirds come here.
Yeah.
So I resigned from all the nonprofit organizations that were clients and sent letters and phone calls to individual trustees that I had done work for, and I asked them if they would like to become clients of my firm, and several followed. So that launched my career, and started building the network out of this area down here in Naples.
And that just started 10 years ago.
Well, 10 years ago, I picked up my entire firm.
Yeah.
And all the cities that I was going to, and I said I'm going to operate it out of one city, and that's Naples, Florida, because they come down here, or they come to the East Coast. So I go to Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, etc. But I still get on planes in the summer, but not, if I fly 6 times a year, that's a lot versus 17 times a month.
Yeah,
Yeah, big
definitely.
change.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
So you made the really smart decision to come down to Naples,
Right.
where you can find most of your clientele here. And if I remember correctly, I think that you shared with me as well that when you were really young and just starting out your career, you did what it took to put yourself in the situations to connect with some of these CEOs. So you had a story that you shared with me where you got connected through, I think it was a United Way
Yeah.
organization, right? Will you share that story? Because I just thought
So-
that was like one of the reasons I wanted to bring Michael on the show is because he has done such an amazing job positioning himself with the right kind of clientele, the people who he wanted to work with, and just make it happen, right? So
Right.
if you wouldn't mind sharing that story.
So life is all about your network. It's all about connections and network. There's an individual, a good friend of mine, that once said to me that you should be able to get anything done you need in life with 3 phone calls. So you think about that. I mean, the really good ones can get it done in 1 call, right?
Right.
So, but usually 2 to 3 phone calls, whatever it is you need or want, you should be able to get that done. So, you know, for a younger person, or really, it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, you have to have access. That's the key. So you have to have a network. And so when I was very young in the insurance business and just started moving into this philanthropic estate planning process that I created for the nonprofits, I knew that I needed to be around affluent people. And so I went to the head of the United Way, had served on some committees, and I said, how do I get access to sitting in the rooms of some of these people that you have on your boards and committees? And he said, well, you should probably consider writing a check for $10,000 to become a member of the 10 Plus Club. Now the 10 Plus Club, or Alexis de Tocqueville in many cities in the United States with United Way, you have to give $10,000 a year. If you're in Cleveland, Ohio at that time, it was a very large concentration of Fortune 500 companies. I had to, if you were a CEO, you had to become a member of the Alexis de Tocqueville or 10 Plus Club. There wasn't an option. You would get your arm twisted pretty good to become a member of that. And so I decided, with very little money to my name, probably the last $10,000 I had, gave that. And then the executive director said, okay, what committee do you want to be on? And I said, I want to be on the committee of other people that give the 10,000. So here I am, 37 years old, and they put me on a committee with probably at least 10 or more Fortune 500 CEOs. And they were all 50, 60 years old, and I'm this 37-year-old kid. And we talked about how we can grow this 10 plus society. And I became a very integral part of that because of my youth at that time of how do we get younger people involved in that. But yeah, that was my first real big exposure. And that's basically what I said when I sat in the room with these CEOs is, do you know how many young people would want to be sitting where I'm
Oh
sitting?
my gosh, yeah.
And so I've always tried to move up market or affiliate with people that have had wealth.
And so just be clear here too. This is why I think it's so powerful to really look at how you really moved yourself into working with your clientele. You made it happen. And it's not like you had $10,000 just sitting around at that time, right? That was a big ask from you.
Right.
Yeah, and there really is. It's there's no secret, you know, and it almost seems counterintuitive to a lot of people where they don't want to make that big investment because it's so big and it's putting it out there. Am I going to get anything back? That's a big risk. But sometimes you start to realize that if you want access to people who have influence, that you got to pay to play the game, right?
Well, you have to know where they are.
And you have to know where they are. So we do that. You know, any conference that we go to now, we always make sure that we go to and pay for the VIP because, first of all, you get better seats, and second of all, you are surrounded with people who made that investment as well, who are looking to be influential or have influence already.
Yeah.
And so just being able, and how many conferences or meetings have we gone to where we've met just amazing people?
The connections are incredible, right? It is all about that network and just making yourself available, being where that network is for you. and doing it in a way too of contributing, I think is really just an incredible way, because you also get then the benefit of the philanthropy there too, right?
Yeah, I did a speech or a presentation for attorneys, accountants, wealth managers here in Naples on how I built my clientele, and not everybody has $10,000 that they can write a check to do that. And everything that I do, I always look at it as an investment. And the return on capital, if I would have taken that $10,000 and put it in a mutual fund or gave it to a wealth manager or a private equity to get a return on capital.
Or put it in a marketing strategy, a direct mail or something like that. You know?
Or something like that,
Yeah.
right. So this $10,000 gave me access, and the business that I received and the network that opened up was a multiple, many times. So every decision that I make, it's a pretty easy decision. You're investing in yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. If you have confidence in what you can do and you can get access, then it's worth every dollar of investment. But one of the things that I shared to some of these younger people that came to the program that I put on was, if you don't have the capital to invest this kind of money that I've been able and very fortunate to invest, is go to these things like you just mentioned, whether it's an $80 ticket or $75 ticket, just get there, or get on a board of a nonprofit organization and bring your intellectual capital if you can't write checks, but give somehow, and that'll still get you into the network. So it's not that you have to have capital to do things. There's a lot of other ways to do it.
So that's a really good point. And when you think about how you network yourself in using charitable organizations, they're looking for time, treasure, or talent, right? And so you got to figure out which of those three you have. So if you can't, stroke that check for 10,000, don't just give up there, right? You started serving on committees, and that's a great way to get into the leadership. It's exactly what we did when we moved down to Naples. When we came from Chicago to Southwest Florida, we knew no one down here except my grandmother and my grandfather, and they were not potential clients of ours, coaching clients. I don't know why they didn't want coaching from us, but but we did the same thing. As we just found out what organizations we were really aligned with and who was who on the different boards and where would be a great place to get in. And I promise you that shortcut our network building just tremendously.
Yeah.
So
you have to, the thing that I imparted, I talked a big part of my presentation was about the charitable network. Number one is you have to have a passion for that organization, which is your word, which is alignment. Okay, so you have to care about that, and speak up at the meetings and really do everything that you possibly can to move that mission forward. And so, if you don't have the financial resources to write the check, make sure that you can go get that. And that's why my network is so important, because I know where I can go get funds. Some of the boards that I'm on require $25,000 a year. A portion of that may come from my wife Shirley and I, and a portion may come from other friends and areas that I can get the capital
from your 3 phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the 3 are important.
The I don't know if a lot of listeners know what a family office is. So can you explain a little bit about what family offices are and why you work with them and what's what important value you bring to them?
Yeah. So family offices. If you look at the Rockefellers, for example, and I use that because a lot of people know who the Rockefellers are. As you become very wealthy, you start to get a little bit concerned about corralling the fence around your family to make sure that your advisors are aligned with you. And the only way to do that is to employ them. So instead of going to the outside financial markets, individual wealth managers, and saying, can you help our family? Are you being told the right thing? Where's the alignment? Is there loyalty to that financial institution for production results, for product lines? Where's their advocacy lie? So a lot of these affluent families prefer to have that advocacy directly related with no products to sell or no outside influence. But they charge those employees to filter all that information that's coming at them, whether it's legal services, insurance services, wealth management services. And so those people are charged with total alignment and advocacy for the family. And so we do work with a lot of family offices as an insurance consultant or philanthropic estate planning consultant. So as I advanced my career, I have other companies outside of Benson Blackburn, and each one of those companies, one of them being Charitable Trust Administration Company, clients in 1995 raised their hand, said I'd like to do a family foundation or a charitable trust. So at that point, at that time, there was no bundling of charitable trust services. You could go to an accounting firm to get the tax forms done, but then you had to get the money management done through a bank or a wealth management. Today you can get that bundled. You can go into a bank or a wealth management firm and get all those services. Mm-hmm. But in 1985 you couldn't. Mm. So we created Charitable Trust Administration Company that created that bundled process. And today it's a 21-year-old company with $1 billion that's doing all the administration tax forms. They don't manage money, but they do all the tax forms. Mm-hmm. And reporting to the IRS. And then as my career advanced more, I saw that my clients needed family office services. So I actually invested in a company that had two guys out of Deloitte and Touche. Grew that company, ended up selling my interest in that after 10 years, and then reinvested recently with Richard Scholl's, founder of Best Buy, and myself took a 25% interest in a company called Meristem, which is a multifamily office, started out of the Pillsbury family and Ankney family, which is the Hamspear, and Whitney family that was tied to the Minnesota Twins and Vikings. And that company does fee only, no sale of products, and you can actually start a family office. The problem with a family office is it's very expensive. You have to have close to $500 million to $1 billion to do a family office. Mm-hmm. So if you take that down to a much lower level, somebody that might have 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, they still have the needs that a family office does, but they can't afford to hire their own team or staff. So what Meristem is, it's a fractional interest in buying your services. So I could start the Benson family office at Meristem that has 40 employees that are CPAs, JDs, MBAs, and their loyalty is to me. Mm-hmm. So as people want to come solicit me for financial services or planning, I refer them to Meristem, and Meristem helps that. Plus they have a South Dakota trust company, so my clients needed trust services, and so we added on a South Dakota trust company.
So that's amazing. You took an unserved market, right? Those who really need the services of a family office but can't possibly afford the full level investment, and created fractional ownership. That is an incredible business. Yeah. And so how many clients do you have in that?
So Meristem has 160 families. Mm-hmm. We have offices in Minnesota and Phoenix and Naples. We just opened up the Naples office.
Got it.
So that firm was started by a gentleman by the name of Charlie Maxwell, and we ended up wanting to, after I sold my original interest in a fractional, I needed a trust company. Mm-hmm. And the other firm that I had ownership in, I couldn't convince my partners to do a trust company, mm-hmm. so I had to sell my interest and then find a company that had the trust services. Mm-hmm. So my whole life has been around solving clients' problems. Whatever they need, if I can find it in the marketplace, then I will bring that to them. If I can't find it in the alignment of what they expect and the level of expertise, then I'll create it.
Then you start a business, right? And so, do you ever sleep?
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah, I do sleep. I'm not as bad as Trump. I sleep a little bit longer than 4 hours.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Some people can survive on less. I don't know how to.
Hey, so let's talk about Next Gen. So this is an amazing program that you offer down here, for an event that you offer down here, and I had an opportunity to attend this a couple months ago, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Next Gen Speaker Series is really an interesting project. It's actually become more than a project. It has a life of its own. It started through one question that I had for one of our clients, Dick Scholl's, the founder of Best Buy. And so Dick, very close friend of mine, I asked if he would, he started Best Buy from scratch. He had a company called Sound of Music where they were selling subwoofers and stereos.
In Minnesota, right?
In Minnesota, and he ended up building that to 7 stores, and then he created the big box concept and Best Buy, and the rest was history. Ended up with close to 2,000 stores worldwide, and they're a Fortune 50 company, 50 billion. I think today they're about 40 billion in sales. So a lot of intellectual capital there, and so I said to him, I saw him in the hallway, his office is right next to ours, and his family office, and I said, Dick, would you come down sometime and talk to my young guys? They need some motivation, some inspiration. So he comes down.
Can you imagine having that? Like, hey, can you come down and just share a little with us?
Yeah, so he came down and went through for, I think it was almost 3 hours, the whole story of Best Buy and all the things you need to do to build an enterprise this large, 170,000 employees. And my jaw is just dropping minute after minute because I've been in business for 40 years. At this time it was like 35 years, maybe 38 years. And I've been successful and thought that I didn't know everything because I believe one of the most important attributes of a leader or an entrepreneur is to continue to learn about life and about business. So anyway, through this process of Dick sharing, we learned a lot, and then I knew another friend of mine, Bill Perez, who ran CEO. He was a CEO of Nike and Wrigley's and SC Johnson, and he came in. Same process, mentoring, and then we had Don Gunther, who was the vice chair at Bechtel. So after the 3rd session, which is my tiny little team of young guys, I said to him, I looked at him and I said, hey guys, this information needs to get shared with the community. We just can't hold it in here. This is too valuable. We need to get this out. So I went back to my friend Dick and I said, Dick, would you be willing to make a presentation? We'll call this thing the Next Gen Speaker Series. You'll be our first speaker. Would you be willing to get up and tell your story and lessons learned? And the idea was to take people to where they were early in life. You can go back as young as you want, 16 or 20, and then how you got to where you are, and then all the successes and failures. And so, and then end your presentation or your talk in the speaker series with lessons learned. And so that was really the start of it.
And that was how long ago?
That was 4 years ago, 2013. He was our first speaker, and since then we've had Michael Duke, who was the CEO of Walmart. We had Jan Fields, who was president of McDonald's, Northeast of Northern America. We had Norman Love of Norman Love Chocolates locally. We had Ralph Stayer of Johnsonville Sausage. So these are very preeminent people that have done some very significant things in life.
These are people who you want to be in a room with. And by the way, so we've been fortunate to go to the last couple, and the crowd that you draw. Now this is unfortunately for some invitation only.
Right.
But again, when you think about what do you do to make yourself, a part of that group and get into that audience? Well, one way to do is probably become a client of Benson Blackburn, I'm sure. But
Clients always get invitations.
I imagine you have people knocking down your door to try to get in to see, not just see those unbelievable like business mentors, right? That's the massive draw, but talk about some of the people who are in that crowd month after month too.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an amazing event that you put together. So how else would someone get into that event?
So we actually partnered with Florida Gulf Coast, with all the local colleges, Hodges University and Florida Southwestern Deans of Business. We started community partners with Imagine Solutions, with Leadership Collier, Immokalee Foundation, Champions for Learning, so students get to come. And we think that's a very important attribute because the 4 pillars that the speaker series was built on was leadership, mentorship, empowerment, and philanthropy. And the philanthropy part is we present a $5,000 check to a local charity to elevate who they are and what they do and helping solve problems. This is all really community driven. It's our way at Benson Blackburn. We've been very fortunate. This community has really embraced. We came here 10 years ago and had maybe 6 clients, and so this community's really embraced us in welcoming us and doing business with us, and so we felt it was really important with our connections and network to bring that to the community. So how you get in, of course, become a client is obvious. Easy way to do it through one of our affiliated partners is a way to do it. And then what I often tell audience or people that send an email or through another friend is how do I get access? How do I get a ticket? Or we don't have tickets, but an invitation is to just simply send me an email. So I think we just started this, which is our website, but nextgennaples.com or bensonblackburn.com. One of those two will just give us a request.
And we'll include these websites in the show notes for those of you who are either down in Naples or you're somewhere else in the country and wish you were in Naples attending one of these amazing events, so that people can reach out to you. And I just, want to warn you that you might be getting a lot of emails and.
Any possibilities? Do you know who the next speaker is going to be for next year, or
We do.
is it this year? Right?
Yeah, we've
This
got
year,
one in
so-
February coming
So
up.
we have Bob Colhep, who was the CEO of Cintas, the uniform company
Yeah,
out of
right.
Cincinnati, Ohio, and he started out as an accountant, and he got a call one day from a guy by the name of Dick Farmer, who ran Cintas. He was the founder, and he said, I'd like you to come in and be the CFO of this company, and he prayed about it, and a couple weeks later he accepted the job. There were 13 employees. They were doing $1 million a year. He took over as CEO when they were doing $600 million and took it to $5 billion. Wow. So this
That's
guy's a
gonna be good.
very talented guy, big on culture. And then the last one we have, and that one is February 9th, and then March 16th we have Glenn Hasse, who started a company, a packaging company, worked for his dad, broke off, decided to do his own thing, started with $3,000 and built this packaging company. So everything you see from cereal boxes, he's from Minnesota, General Mills, packaging, whether it's meat products or cereal, Quaker Oats, etc., and sold it for over $1 billion. So that was a real interesting story. This fall, December 15th, we have Shelley Broder, who is the CEO of Chico's. So she'll be speaking and telling her story. And then in the 19, we have Jim McLaughlin, who was going by a courthouse, a lawyer, and decided to buy in an auction, a coal mine. And called his cousin or a relative and said, I've just bought this coal mine, and can you sell it and double our money? And the cousin or relative said, sell it. He goes, we're going to mine that coal. In the first month they made $1 million. So he became the largest coal, one of the largest United Coal Company broker in distributor in the United States. So these are the quality of the people that we're getting. So another way to obviously get access is to become a sponsor. Originally I was underwriting everything. We do this in a private club, and we provide breakfast, and then we provide a nice book, as you saw, some type of self-help and motivational book, and then a beautiful brochure on lessons learned from all our previous speakers. So sponsors are allowed to, that was a way to help us underwrite the cost. Sponsors get access by bringing their guests. So yeah, it's a very...
You have a great group of sponsors right
we
now
have
too,
great
who've been with you
sponsors.
for a long time too. Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for starting this. You were just getting all that great information, just your team, and having that insight that we need. We can't just keep this to ourselves, and we need to bring this to the community. I just think about the breakfast that we had last month with Dick Schultz.
Yeah.
And the message that I got from him, and I'd love to hear your message too, but the message that I really got from him in hearing his story is he is just all about the customer. And I know that seems really simple, but you think about how he created that as an absolute culture. One thing you know about Best Buy is that, well, at least for me, I'm kind of a technology dum-dum, so I can't go into one of those stores without help. And I would just always go in and I'd look for that blue shirt, And I would go and find and ask someone a question, and they literally, and this is across different states, that different Best Buys, different states, always the same culture where they would literally just take me, walk me through, explain to me in very simple terminology. And how you can create that with a group of frontline employees absolutely has to come from the top, from the leadership. And so he created that as a culture. It's just all about the customer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're in a world today of disruption with Amazon and everything that we're seeing in technology. And so disruption is a big part and a big concern. You look at LegalZoom for the legal community. You look at Amazon as now entering the grocery business, and a big threat to retailers like Walmart and Best Buy. And so how do you deal with that? So Dick Scholl's addressed managing through disruption, which he did many times through his career to grow that company. But the issue that he really discussed is that if you do keep your focus on the customer, and I really never thought about it in my career that I was doing that, but when my clients were saying, I'm struggling with my trust company, Susie left it, I get a new employee every single time, and it's very frustrating. They always want to sell me their products, and they're not really aligned. So the light bulb goes off and says, well, I need a trust company that creates alignment and has stability for my clients. So that was really keeping my eye on the customer and listening to the customer, which was Dick Scholl's whole issue with Best Buy. And his whole philosophy, and he beats that drum, as you heard him very, very loud with the current CEO and the current management team, is that if you are focused totally on the customer, your client, what their needs are, what their issues are, why they're buying services, that your disruption will happen as a matter of course. You don't have to go out and say, how can we create something different that our clients want? It's what do our clients want? It's totally the other way around. It's what do our clients want? How can we create something around that? So when you think back about what he did at Best Buy, he sold subwoofers and record players and cassette players. And the next thing you know, his clients are buying washing machines and refrigerators and TVs, and they had homes now. They weren't college students. That's how he started, was college students. And so he said, I need to bring that to my clients. He was listening to his clients and built services. What I've done, a little bit different than what he's done, is I've built companies to do that and taken a percentage ownership, because I felt that the equity portion was important for the people to run it and me just to bring clients to that. So my model was a little bit different than what he did. And not quite the revenue that he's done.
But very client-centric though, right?
Very
I mean, if
client-centric.
you can't find a solution for your clients, you go create one. So I think it's well aligned. All right, you know, I think we could sit and talk to you for hours and hours, because you have so much, just a wealth of knowledge and information, because you've constantly put yourself in a network of people who are unbelievable leaders and mentors. Is there anyone else who stands out for you as someone who's been a mentor for you? You know, somebody who's you know, left you with a purpose, you know, that helps guide you.
Well, Dick Scholl's obviously is a big mentor personally and also of our firm, and so he's very helpful. George Tamke, he ran Hertz. He's ran 7 companies. He ran Kinko's, sold it to FedEx for $1.2 billion, I believe. He ran Emerson Electric. He's become a very, very good friend, and he's a great mentor. So I email him if I've got an issue or a challenge in the business. So he was an MBA from Stanford in managerial science. So he comes at it not only from actual experience, not an entrepreneur, but a really good thinker on organizational development, which anybody in business, whether you're an entrepreneur, organizational development is one of the biggest challenges that anybody, how do you motivate people, how do you empower people, how do you set strategic issues within a company to move it forward. So George has been a big mentor.
And has George been in your Next Gen Speaker Series yet?
He has. He's been a speaker. He's one of our speakers. He was lead director of Hertz. He was chairman, I believe, of Clayton Dublier, which is a very large private equity firm out of New York, and they hire only CEOs that have run companies to become partners. There's like 16 partners. It's an interesting firm out of New York. But he's spoken, and he's going to speak again for our leadership breakfast, which is only for the sponsors. So you have to become a sponsor or know somebody.
Or know somebody.
Right? But the sponsors are allowed to bring guests. It's our leadership breakfast. And George is going to talk about positioning your business for growth, merger, or sale.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on with us, Michael. Thank you so
Good.
much for sharing
Yeah.
everything. And I think for me, what when we moved to Naples in Southwest Florida from Chicago, we knew that there were very influential, wealthy people that lived down here. Obviously, it's just a kind of place to be, especially during season. But it's one thing to know that they're down here and have all of this knowledge and experience and knowing that they want to share it, but they didn't have a forum, a place to be able to share that with just your average people, right? And to give them that venue, I appreciate that, because I think it's hugely valuable for other people to really understand that these ultra wealthy people just don't come out anywhere. You know, they actually have work, they have great stories. They usually have started when they were in their, teens and 20s and just kept with persistence and, built it that way and through relationships. And I there were some great takeaways for me in this as well. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And I've got one last question for you to wrap up the interview that is something we love to ask our guests, and that is, knowing all that you know now, what kind of advice would you give to the 21-year-old Michael Benson?
So the 21-year-old Michael Benson, I think the advice that I would give is that I was always persistent. So persistence was never an issue. Work ethic was never an issue. I think I needed to learn to listen more. When you have youth, you tend to think you know all the answers. And like I shared, I was sitting in a meeting after 38 years old listening to Dick Scholes about how he built Best Buy. Or even when I pick up the phone. I mean, even today at 61 years old, I have large challenges that I thought that I knew how to do all that back then. So being open-minded is probably one of the best advice that I can give to a young person today is always challenge your thinking. Always challenge the way that you are thinking about the world and see if somebody else sees it differently than you do. And being open to listen and take that advice and then act on it. That's another issue. I never had a problem on acting. Sometimes I would act too fast and make mistakes, but that's typical of an entrepreneur or a type A personality. They'll do things and then you cut your losses quickly. But don't be afraid to make mistakes and afraid to fail. I was never afraid to fail because I knew that I could. I see a lot of young people that just will not take risk. You have to be willing to take risk and fail. There's nothing that you can really do of significance other than, of course, breaking the law or something like that, but that you could, even if you go bankrupt. When I was 38 years old, I got on the verge of doing that as I was launching my charitable consulting company, and I still had a little money left in my IRA, so the lawyer said, you still have assets, you can't go bankrupt. But you have to be willing to take those risks, because even if that would have happened, there are so many people that I've met with over the years that have experienced that have still become very successful. Yeah. So that's probably being open-minded, listening to people, challenge your thinking, and be willing to take risks.
Awesome. Great advice. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Evolve to Win show. And as I said, I'm going to, in our show notes, make sure that I give people access to your information website so that they can reach out to you. And just thanks for being who you are in this community. And thank you for joining us as well. And if you would like to connect with Michael, please do so. And you can also always connect with us through social media. And please tune in again next week for the Evolve to Win show.
Thank you.
Bye.